I was born in Indiana. I thought the whole Revolutionary War was the Tea Party in Boston and George Washington. When we came to little Switzerland to live, when I was lots older, I started learning about it here at the orchard. And what I'm about to tell you is my view of the ways that I have seen that the British lost the Revolutionary War here in the South. So bear with me. I'm an apple grower. I'm not a historian, but I think I've got this right. The person that lost the battle at Kings Mountain was Major Patrick Ferguson. I'm going to start with him as a contributor to this loss. See, he was Scottish. He joined the British Army, and he was a great shot with a rifle. And he invented a way to load a rifle rather than the muskets that the British were using. The rifle has a spiral inside the barrel, and so it spins the bullet as it comes out, sort of like a fastball in baseball, and it goes true. The British musket did not go true. As a matter of fact, the barrel was large. It shot a lot of lead out, but the lead they shot was a little smaller than the barrel, and so it rattled when it came out of the barrel, just like a knuckleball in baseball. So Ferguson was sort of an inventor, and he invented a way to load the rifle by the chamber rather than down the barrel like everybody had to do. And he thought that ought to be used by the British Army. British Army was the mightiest army in the world at the time, and they didn't want to go messing around with new kinds of weapons that would change the way they fought. So they denied his request. He appealed to King George III. He got an audience with the king. And the day he came, it was raining. You couldn't usually fire rifles or even muskets very well in the rain. But his rifle loaded at the breech, and he shot 6 times in 1 minute on target from 6 different positions where he was kneeling or standing or shooting from his belly or whatever. The king was impressed. He said, "Build 100 of those rifles and take them to the colonies and prove yourself." So he did. He had a force of 100 people here. Before he even got to the first battle, he had a chance to influence the outcome of the Revolutionary War, maybe even win it. He was stationed in a woods above a trail with several of his rifle guys, and he saw coming down the road, riding on a horse, a Continental Army officer. He had everybody line up to fire by hand signal, and as the soldier came down past him, he had him stand down. It was his ethics not to shoot an officer or maybe even a soldier from ambush. And history has traded off a lot of data in that event and decided that it was George Washington whose life he spared by not shooting. The second one was later in that same, within a week or so, when he got involved in his first battle. And unfortunately for him, he was wounded in the right arm by one of his own soldiers. So he had to leave the field of battle He couldn't use the right arm, although they saved it. He couldn't use it. He had to learn to shoot left-handed, and he did with his rifles, and he was still one of the best shots in the British Army. But the second chance here to influence the outcome of the Revolutionary War was squandered when he was wounded by someone on his own side. The second in command didn't have near the idea of how to use the rifles, and so the British Army declared that 100-man experiment as a failure, fortunately for us in the Revolutionary War. So there were two chances he had an opportunity to influence the outcome of the Revolutionary War with weapons. He had other opportunities. I want to take us back a little in history to 1762, when the British won the French and Indian War. They won it with the help of the Cherokee Indians. So King George III, doing something honorable to his allies in the battle, said no one will ever settle across the Continental Divide on the ancient land of the Cherokee. And if they do, you have my permission to scalp them, and I will pay you for the scalps taken. The Cherokee land comes right across the Continental Divide, right down the Continental Divide. One corner of it is in Mount Mitchell, one corner of it is in Grandfather Mountain, and one quarter of it is in the Roan Mountain. And that's a triangle that was their ancestral land. Well, guess what? Settlers started settling in the land that had been set aside for the Cherokee. And so there were skirmishes all the time, practically, in the 1770s and 1780s. The last scalping I know of that the Cherokee claimed money for was on the wrong side of the Continental Divide. The British couldn't tell which side of the Continental Divide the scalps came from, and so they paid the Cherokee for scalps taken on the south side of the Continental Divide. And on the north side, across the Continental Divide, they were after the settlers. Names like John Sevier and Isaac Shelby were among the leaders settling over on the Cherokee land. Well, the Indians tried to scalp them as much as they could. Failed because the guys that they were fighting were as tough as they were. And worse, they were getting reinforcements by more and more settlers coming across the divide to settle in the fertile lands, now part of Tennessee, and a little bit in western North Carolina. Well, that particular promise is, in my opinion, the primary reason why the Battle of Kings Mountain was even fought.